Nina Moiseva, very proud to have you on the Geospatial Index. I understand that you are a senior Earth observation scientist at Map Impact. Welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in the podcast, and I will be really glad to share with you what we are doing.
Great. I should also say that you were referred to me by the CEO of GIS Carter. This is Alex. I think his surname translates to king in Russian. Is that right?
Yes, his surname is Karlov, which is like some sort of the king. Yes, and also that is the same surname as the Korolov, who is a famous inventor in Russia, also held. So yes, that is quite a good surname.
Okay, there we go. I'm tempted now to ask what Moiseva means.
Moiseva is actually literally like it is translated like of Moses, so belonging to the Moses. Yeah.
Interesting. So like a biblical. It's interesting to know that there are sort of biblical names in Russian too.
Yes. So it is. My surname directly comes from the Moses, but of Moses sounds like too much Handmaid's Tale. So,
oh my God.
yes. So yes, in English it is translated as Moiseva.
Sure, I love the reference to Handmaid's Tale too. Do Russians have to read that? Because I think actually at school in Australia we had to read the Handmaid's Tale in year 11. I think. Do you guys have to read it there?
No. It's not in our school program, but we are familiar with this book also. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I feel like I'm really doing geography, being able to talk with guests from different places around the world, and I'm proud that the last one that went live in the past few days was from Ghana. So I feel like I'm doing my job here, not just about information systems, but also geography.
Yes, that is actually really great. That's one of the things which I really like in London, that here you can communicate like with people in like from all the places in the world, and that's magnificent. Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree. I had the same feeling when I came to London. I like hearing the foreign accents everywhere. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so let's step straight into Map Impact then. Have you got a 30-second elevator pitch?
Yes, Map Impact is a pioneering environmental data services company. Map Impact was launched in the year 2023, and we can consider ourselves as a startup company, which right now is very stable and already have got a set of the customers. So we are taking very highly collaborative approach to bring novel products to the market, and our products, they are related to the environmental assessment and environmental monitoring. So we are trying to provide people with the tools for the environmental reporting. So I also want to reflect a little bit on our motto. We have got a motto, and it sounds like helping nature count. And I think that's what we are actually doing in our core. We really helping nature to count. And I think it's not only our motto, that is also about our mission and how we see ourselves in the market to help people, to help the environment, to support the ecologists, and to support the environmental services and solution with high quality geospatial products and tools.
Yep. Okay, this is very topical. I was having a chat with Andy Coote, who's one of the founders of a consulting company called Consulting Where, and he said that nature services or ecosystem services is a hot topic now in geospatial. So yeah, I feel like I'm a good listener to him for getting you as a guest. So yeah, we'll see what he thinks, for example, of this conversation too.
Yes, I strongly agree that environmental services are a hot topic, and sometimes they're also dictated by the mandatory environmental legislation, which we have got in the United Kingdom and not only. And I want really to believe that it's not only about the environmental agenda and environmental policies. I also believe that people are really ready for the good environmental solutions and to implement the best environmental practices?
Yeah, I mean, when I came up with the agenda and I was sort of looking at your website, of course, I came up with what can I say, a systematic approach to evaluate your company, and I've asked sensible questions to see what services you offer. But there was another question that was in the back of my mind, and I'm just gonna, I guess, ask it or make this point. And you mentioned the green agenda. I think we can go beyond the politics and the idea that it's only people who vote for the Greens Party or donate to Greenpeace that care about this. I think you can look at nature in a different way. When you're in a spaceship, it matters a lot to protect the hull and to make sure that the oxygen scrubber maintains the right atmosphere inside the hull. And at the risk of it getting dramatic, in a way, you can say that the Earth is a spaceship. And ecosystem services and companies like yours that monitor the quality of them, it's kind of like a system to check that the systems to check that the spaceship are actually working.
Yes. And we also can talk a little bit about this analogy because one of our missions is also to support the biodiversity and to support the biodiversity measurement. And one of our products which we are developing right now, it is also about to understand that we are achieving the environmental goals which are set by the mandatory environmental legislation. So, for example, to support the biodiversity net gain. So I think it is a good analogy which you provided.
Yeah, thanks. I think we can develop it further, and I think it will help with everybody's understanding of the significance. To me, maybe I take this view because I've been working for engineering companies since 2011. And so I think if you can I reckon if you just remove all the environmental language and just talk about maintaining the systems and mechanisms and the machine to support life, suddenly the importance of this becomes more obvious. Anyway, getting back to, I guess, the point of our conversation, you mentioned that there's some changes in government legislation in the UK. So this is a segue then onto the niche that map impact dominates. Could you talk more about that?
Yes. So right now we are considering that we are dominating the niche of the environmental data services and especially the tools for the clear and concise decision making for the environmental reporting. So our mission is to support the ecologists and to support the biodiversity. And one of our key products right now, which we are developing, is a product which is called the Biodiversity View. And it is focused on the supporting of the mandatory environmental legislation, in particular the UK Environmental Act, which was issued in 2021. And according to the current legislation, for example, it is mandatory for all the land developers who are working in the UK to assure the biodiversity net gain. So that means that when the developer works in some territory area, he need to assure that the biodiversity is around 10%. So that means that all the sites must be kept in a better condition after the development is finished. So our key product, which is the Biodiversity View right now, serves to support this environmental legislation.
Perfect.
And to and it serves like to the purpose of helping to count the nature and helping to count the biodiversity. So the users of our product, they will be able to answer the question, are they achieving or they're not achieving the biodiversity net gain? They could also use the product to support this achievement, and they also can use it for the decision making related to the area.
Okay.
So to understand what exactly they need to improve.
But this is a nice, well-defined niche then, basically to do with, I guess, a single outcome of some recent environmental legislation in the UK, where any property or housing or infrastructure developments where engineering works, for example, are involved that disturb the environment, the result must be that there is a 10% gain in biodiversity, and your software allows for monitoring and evidence about achieving that.
Yes,
That's
that
the
is.
niche that you are looking at and trying to dominate along with other competitors, I assume.
Yes, and also it is like about environmental services in general. So we are not limiting us to only the main product which we develop right now, because we are planning new products to come to the market. We also have got like a lot of the environmental projects and so on. So we are working in the crisscross of the environmental services and the deep understanding of how the nature works. We are working in the crisscross of the using of the geospatial technologies, geospatial data, and in particular the Earth observation data. We are working because a lot with satellite imagery data. We are implementing a lot of the computational techniques. So we are working on the crisscross of all these things and trying to assure for our customers that we are providing them with the good services which helps them to assess environment and to assess nature and so on. So when it comes to environmental services, it is not only about the biodiversity. The range of the environmental services is actually quite wide. So we are aiming to support a lot of things in the future.
It's important to know how management and employees are incentivized. So how much skin in the game does management have, and employees?
About how much skin in the game does the management team have? So everybody are involved, because if it is like a partner-owned company, and that means that our management is very motivated, and all the people who are working in the team and in the companies, they are really very motivated. So they are doing their best, because I think it is very similar for many small companies and for many startup companies, because every person, and especially if it is a management team, if it is C-level people and so on, they feel the high level of the responsibility for everything what they're doing, and they see the consequences of their decisions. So a lot of skin in the game.
Yeah, perfect. I love it. You all, a phrase that applies here is an owner mindset. And I can see how the partner approach means that you all have an owner mindset. Another thing I wanted to say was when you got on the call initially, you were using the word productivity. And that to me is a natural consequence of having an owner mindset, because of course you don't want to sit around wasting time. So
yes, and I think from my point of view, that is one of the quality which is very important for me from every people with whom I am working. So they must be dedicated, they must be consistent, they must be responsible, proactive, and productive.
yeah.
Yes, and sometimes I say that the people who are working, they must be, on the one hand, they must be passionate, but on the other hand, they need to be very patient. So yes, and for me, productivity is very important because productivity is a sign of your dedication to what you're doing.
Yeah. This is, I love the spirit, Nina. Yeah. I hope others can receive some motivation listening to this. That's great. Cool. So how do you ensure that you're working backward from customer needs?
Yes, so here I think that I can answer that the main thing is customer feedback. Because right now we have got a wide range of the customers, and we also have got strong partnership relationships, and we have got collaboration and the partnerships with one of the company which we are in good partnership relations and very strong partnership relations is a digital ecology. We have got partnership relationships with Landmark. We have got good relationships with many universities and so on. And we are always aiming to stay in touch with our customers and to collect the proper customer feedback. Because, for me, one of the best customers is always the people who are giving you a valid and good feedback. So, how to ensure that we are working backward from the customer needs is to actually collect the feedback, and the best customer is actually customer who use your product or results of your project a lot, because this case scenario, the customer is capable to communicate with you and to be critical about what you are doing, and sometimes it is actually very good to implement some new practices, or like not only about like changing the user interface or changing the reporting and so on, but it is also about good communication.
Yeah.
So, and if we are talking about Map Impact as a startup company and Map Impact as a company who is striving to work in the innovation sector, so like there is a standard cycle which is like about think, innovate, adapt, implement, and repeat. And the customers here is very important for you to be able to innovate and to be able to adapt the technologies which you are developing. So
Did you say think, innovate? I'm just writing it down. Think, innovate, adapt, repeat.
yes, implement and repeat.
Think, say it again.
Think, innovate, adopt, implement, and repeat.
Adopt,
Yeah.
implement, repeat. Gotcha.
Yeah, because I think in this chain you definitely need great feedback from your customer, and yeah, we always try to hear our customers, and if they are not satisfied with something, or if they have got some additional feedback, additional requests, and so on, we are always collecting it. And it is also very important for us to, when you talk about any product development, like whatever the product is, like a geospatial product or any other, it is very important for you to build up the good user story. So the best approach to make any sort of the geospatial product is actually to understand which exact user stories and user scenarios you are planning to serve. And to understand these user cases and user scenarios, you of course need to understand your customer needs. And while we were developing the biodiversity view, we are also trying to understand like how the report should looks like for the customer. When we are trying to understand like which new metrics we should add to the product and so on, we always think about the customer needs. So what exactly they need inside the reporting tool, what the metrics they need inside the product, what is actually needed for them to answer all the questions which they have got about the biodiversity net gain and so on. So, yeah.
Wonderful. What is, I've heard this phrase or term user stories before. I don't want to test you. This is not an exam, but can you define a user story?
Okay, we can define it in our own words. So, user story is actually some sort of the scenario on which your customer will work with your data, or with the results of your product. So, actually, what it should bring to your customer, which question it should answer, which exact customer purpose it should serve, and so on. So that is a very important phase of any sort of the research you do within the product development.
Yeah,
So
I like it because it seems to frame your perspective in terms of not yours as the business, but who you're hoping to sell the product to. So it causes you to step through in their shoes what they are doing.
yes, that is actually a good to say. Yes, it's trying to step into your customers' shoes and to understand what exactly they need from your product, because it's like nowadays, using the Earth observation data and using the geospatial data, you can develop like a wide range of solutions. You can compute the really plenty of metrics and so on. So using the modern Earth observation data, you can compute a lot of stuff. But you need to scope your work. You need to understand what exactly your customer needs and so on, because sometimes like the less is better. You cannot provide your customer with a product which will compute like everything in its words, and after that your customer will need to figure out like what exactly
To fit their story.
if it fits their story and so on. Yes, that is your task to understand how better to serve yes their story and to
I feel like I can be a nerd with you about customer needs. And I did this product management course at Stanford last year, and one of the main messages we got from that is a great way to kill your business is to not work backwards from customer needs. So it's really nice to hear how fluent you are in talking about ways to find out what those are.
Yes, because if you will not hear back your customer needs, sometimes you can finish on spending too much time, efforts, and resources on the things which customers don't need.
Yeah.
So you always need to add focus when it comes to the products and add focus when it comes to the projects.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. All right. So as an expression of your success in working backwards from customer needs, how fast is customer growth?
I think there are two parts of the question. So one part of the question is how fast is customer growth, but I think what is also more important is how stable is the customer growth.
Yep.
So
the lack of churn, you mean?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, I think Map Impact as a company is not at any sort of the critical point. So we are stable. So that means that we are independent and we have got like both projects and product, which makes us a stable company. So we have got the products which we are developing by our own, and we also have got a range of projects to serve our customers with good environmental solutions. And what is good is that we have got customers who are coming to us online from the different range of sectors, because they're not only like the customers from one sector, so it's a different range of sectors. So there are people who are from the governmental sectors, they are people who are landowners, different organizations, property developers like charity organizations, land developers, and so on. And this range of customers is very diverse, and diverse project scope, diverse products, and diverse range of customers, they leads you to become a very stable company. Because even if something will happen with some of the customers, you have got a lot of other customers to continue to grow. So yes, so I think what is important, the growth is fast and the growth is stable.
And you retain the customers that you obtain through growth.
Yeah,
is maybe your point. Yeah.
Yes, and what I really like that we have got, because of that, we have got really diverse range of projects, and we have got diverse range of the products. And that is good. And they are all connected to the environmental services. So on the one hand, we are keeping our niche, but on the other hand, within this one niche, we really can provide a lot of solutions.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the term environmental service has come up enough times that we should define it. Could you tell us what an environmental service is?
Yes, so environmental service is, from our point of view, is a data service which could support the range of the customers who are interested in the environmental assessment. Environmental assessment or the following the mandatory environmental legislation. So we are not working only with the people who geospatial users and so on, because a lot of our customers they are not the geospatial users on the core. So that means that our services are suitable for the different range of the customers who can work with the geospatial data and who are the geospatial users, and for the customers who are not the geospatial users but who need to understand what is happening with the area, what is happening with the development side, and so on. So we can work with, like, for example, the housing associations, we can work with landowners, we can work with the property developers, and so on. But if we are talking about like the geospatial science in general, and I think it will be quite comfortable for me to to talk from the point of view of a geospatial scientist. Like geospatial science, when it comes to environment, it is really everywhere, and you can assess everything, because sometimes you hear the question like, could it be assessed like with the geospatial data or with the Earth observation data? And my answer is almost all the time yes, because when it comes to the nature, it is almost all the time you can assess it using the geospatial data or the Earth observation data. It's like sometimes one of the scientists said that everything could be mapped from geology to ideology. So that means that in general, you can put like on the map everything. And the same happens when it comes to the environmental services, because every part of the natural systems, which you will name, like forestry, agriculture, water management, and so on. So everything related to the risk assessment, environmental monitoring, monitoring of the deforestation, like carbon market, carbon credits, and so on. In every field, you can find a place where you can implement the geospatial data, and where you can use the Earth observation data to count something. So that is about like environmental services.
Okay, so then what is your evidence for adding significant value to environmental services through collaboration and technology?
I think it will be maybe good to explain it on the example of one of the projects which we recently finished. So, for example, one of the projects which we were working in 2023 and 2024 is the Wintermere project. And it was related to the understanding the algae blooms in the lake and why they happened. So we integrated like a lot of the geospatial data, used a lot of the computational and the statistical approach. We used like the multi-time series analysis and analysis of the data from the different data sources, not only Earth observation data and not limited to it. And we tried to answer the question why the algae blooms appears and what they were connected with, like was they connected with climatic and meteorological factors, or they were connected with human movement, or they were connected with land cover, land use, and agricultural changes which are happening in the area of the water catchment. And to implement this project, we collaborated a lot with stakeholders, and we collaborated a lot with local community. We developed the technology for the assessment. We applied the technologies which we developed, and we define the evidence why the algal bloom happens. and what is affecting them. And what we see from the user feedback, from the feedback of the stakeholders and feedback from the community, that such kind of projects, they really help people to understand that when it comes to environmental problems, like everything is connected, and a lot of things is connected. It's like the first commoner's law, like everything is connected, but the specially connected things are more closely connected than others. So yeah,
Tobler's first law of geography.
yes, and we can see that the products which we are developing, they can affect the decision making. They can affect the decision making. They are also thought-provoking in terms of, on this particular example, in terms of how the water management and water treatment should works like. So these projects, they also attracts an attention of the community and so on. And I think it is about like finding the evidences. It is about like supports decision making. And from my point of view, if I see that the results of our computations or the results of our projects, they are taken into account to come to any sort of the decision, like about new water management scheme or about like some sort of the replacing of the vegetation species, for example, or something like that, or another like schemas of how you will treat your territory and so on. I think that is about, at this point, you see that you are adding some significant value for the environment. So when your results are actually taken into account when the people are thinking about the area management. Because, nowadays to understand how you should treat your territory, it is very important for you to take into account the geospatial part, because you cannot take any sort of the geospatial decisions if you didn't see the proper map of the area and understand how everything is connected inside your area. So that's how I see when we are adding the significant value. So when I see that people really using our data for decision making.
Yep. Okay. I think this leads on nicely to the next question, which is how do you see the role of a scientist in a modern commercial organization?
Yeah, so from my point of view, originally, I can describe myself as a person who is from both scientific and industry backgrounds. But I understood quite early that I don't want to be a pure academic scientist. So for me, it is.
I understand the feeling.
Yes. So I love both, but I see myself much more as a scientist who is working in a commercial or an industry organization, because
This is a nice perspective.
yeah, I can describe map impact and the products which map impact provides to the market as a science-driven products, science-driven, data-driven, and so on. So we are not just computing some random stuff. Not no, of course, we are computing the things which are strongly driven by the science. So as a role of a scientist, for example, is to explain what the exact product should compute and why the product should compute this stuff, and which exact techniques, methodologies, which exact like formulas and so on you should take into account, especially when you're working with Earth observation data, because there are so many things related to the atmospherical physics, there are so many things related to the radiance and so on. So you need to exactly explain what product computes, why the computation are as follows, and which data you should provide to your customers. And it is also about like a lot of the collaboration, because nowadays to develop something really good, you need to collaborate and you need to use the strong parts and the strong skills of many people. So you need to understand what is happening with the product in terms of like biodiversity itself, in terms of how exactly, because for example, even the problem of how you are measuring the biodiversity, yes, they exist in like the biodiversity metric calculators and so on, but they all are very scientifically driven, so it is not just some sort of random computations or something like that. So you need to exactly understand what to do and to explain that also to the customers. So because they need to feel themselves secure that your product computes exactly what they need, and you use the best techniques to do this.
Yeah, this leads us nicely to the next question, I guess, as an expression of the effect of having a scientist in a commercial organization. So what are your novel products that measure the performance of natural assets, and what role does geospatial have to play in those products? So the key idea there is measuring the performance of natural assets. And I think that concept, maybe you could define that concept first.
Yeah, so for example, I think the biodiversity view as a product is a good example here, because what the biodiversity view as a product should measure, it should measure the biodiversity. And it is actually quite good and tricky scientific question about how exactly you should measure the biodiversity and what the biodiversity is. Because it is a combination of the things. It is a combination of the habitat type, it is a combination of the habitat condition, it is combination of the area and size of the habitat and so on. So on the one hand, you need to understand what exact habitats you are measuring, you need to understand how you're measuring them, what are the productivity and how to compute this productivity. And we are making a measurement with so-called biodiversity units. And the biodiversity units themselves, it is like some sort of measure of how your natural assets are performing. Because, for example, when the developers, they are trying to answer a question like, are they achieving the 10% biodiversity net gain, or they're not achieving the 10% biodiversity net gain, it is about also answering the question like how exactly the biodiversity is measured. So we are using so-called biodiversity units and the habitat units to measure the biodiversity, and it is quite a complex metric.
Sorry, what was the name of that product again?
Biodiversity view.
Biodiversity view, okay.
Yeah, biodiversity view, and idea is to support the biodiversity net gain.
So this is, I think, maybe a novel concept for some people. Like the idea has come up for me in my professional life, especially since coming to the UK. The idea that a so-called natural asset performs some function, and that function can be measured, or the rate of performance can be measured. So in response to, I guess, this question, you mentioned biodiversity, but is biodiversity specifically a natural asset?
Yes. So actually, so different types of the habitats, they can have got like different sort of the biodiversity. So biodiversity units themselves, it is like a metric which help you to understand. It relates to many things. So it relates to the habitat itself. It relates to the habitat type. So which exact habitat you're measuring. It relates to the habitat size. And it relates of the habitat location, and it is also relates to the habitat quality. And actually, it is one of the most tricky things to understand, like how exactly you should measure the habitat quality, because on the one hand, you have got the guidelines on how to measure the biodiversity quality, on the biodiversity quality, I mean the habitat quality. On the other hand, it becomes quite tricky sometimes when it comes to the Earth observation data, because there is like different things, like to measure the biodiversity when you are a field ecologist and you're located on the ground, and the different thing is about measuring the biodiversity when you trying to measure biodiversity when you are looking on the habitat, like from the space.
I'm just thinking, so is a way to sort of look at this that you could compare two pieces of land. One may, in terms of measuring biodiversity, you might somehow detect, either using field work and laborious, lengthy, all-weather field visits by ecologists, or using some Earth observation data, you could somehow detect that a given 1 kilometer square patch of land sustains 2 habitats. And then you could compare that to another square kilometer patch of land that sustains 4 habitats. Could you say that the one that sustains 4 has higher performance than the one that sustains 2, and your service, your environmental service, helps potential clients to identify the ones that sustain fewer habitats to help them focus their efforts, their remediation efforts, so that they can perhaps improve the performance, so they go from 2 habitats to 4 to 5? Is this what we're talking about?
It is not always so straightforward, but in general, the idea is as follows. So we are also using the information from the ground truth. So we are also using the results which are provided to us by the field ecologists. And we have got like the test sites and test areas for which we have got both information about what is exactly happening on the ground and what we see on the satellite imagery. And those data are actually helping us to develop the exact scientific methodology of how to compute the biodiversity and how to compute the habitat units. It is not actually so straightforward that if you have got like more types of the habitats, that will mean that the area is more biodiverse. Because, for example, these habitats could be at good condition, and these habitats could be at the poor condition. So
only offer marginal capacity to sustain that particular species versus they can flourish, right?
Yeah, but in general, you understood the idea very correct. So yes, we are helping for people to answer the question how biodiverse is the area, and we are trying to help them with the rapid assessment of the area, and also to measure for them how many habitat units and biodiversity units the area has. So we are here trying to provide people with metric which will be comparable and which will, with the use of the Earth observation data, will help for the rapid assessment and the comparable assessment of the different types of the area, which is actually very important. And that is where the observation data could really support your product. Because, you know, sometimes even when it comes to the field ecology, you have got a situation that different ecologists, they could assess area quite in a different manner, because it also depends on the human perception. When it comes to the Earth observation, it is less biased because you are using the same quantitative approach for all the territory you are assessing. So on the one hand, it is rapid assessment, not as detailed as a real field assessment, but on the other hand, when you will come to the situation that you cannot like assess all the area, also United Kingdom, for example, with a field ecologist, because it will be very, very time consuming. It will be not simultaneously in time. I mean, and it will be really expensive, and maybe there are not so many field ecologists who can do that. But you can do such things with Earth observation data and really help people to make a rapid assessment which will be concise, which will be repeatable at a time period you want it to be repeatable, and
there's so much
you
to
can
get into
compare
here.
the data. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I feel like I now need to have a whole another episode just to go into the details because I've got so many questions. Like, and I want to try to ask to think critically about this. And in asking this question, I don't mean to come across as being cynical. The best way I can put this is imagine that I am a farmer and I have a piece of land, and I am trying to respond to the incentives from the government to increase the biodiversity on my land. But imagine there is a river, a very wide river, that takes up half of my land. I'm a small farmer, right? But I have a 100-meter wide river that takes up half of my land. And that river serves a population of 1 million people downstream from my land. But because I only have a small area of land that's under my control, and the government has policies in place to encourage me to increase the biodiversity, and the measurement only occurs in terrestrial habitats, then I would be incentivized as the farmer to reduce the width of the river, increase the area of land on my farm, and make sure that there are thriving terrestrial habitats within that land that I've reclaimed from the river. But because I have reduced the width of the river, it affects the quality of life for people, the billion people downstream of me. So there's so many things here. And like what I'm trying to say is like we need to have appropriate biodiversity and habitat development, not just a general increase in biodiversity.
Yes,
that could sound really cynical. I don't mean to be cynical.
I wanted to say that your example you provided is quite synthetic one because actually it is not what is happening exactly. So if you are a farmer, nobody will ask you to replace a river or something like that. So,
but there could be a reward. There could be a financial reward because if I can show that I have higher biodiversity as a result of more terrestrial, you know what I mean? Anyway,
highly unlikely scenario.
It is a bit. Okay, so I need to think a bit more.
Yeah, that is also not so easy to move the river.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Unless you're in Holland. The Holland are good at claiming back land from water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess second last question. AI is all the rage. Deep learning and algorithmic analysis of matrix data sets, however, are not new to geospatial, such as in the subdiscipline of Earth observation. So what's been the impact of AI on map impact?
So first of all, I want to say here two things, maybe three things. So first of all, I'm never a fan of buzzwording inside the field of artificial intelligence and so on, because it's like, I think that nowadays many people, because everything is on agenda, many people nowadays they are buzzwording when it comes to the artificial intelligence, and they start to overuse this word and say that they are using it like a lot on a daily basis and so on. But we are using the machine learning techniques and we are using the artificial intelligence, but I think what is important there, it is to focus not on the exact technologies which you are using to provide one product or another. The main thing is to focus on a solution and to focus on the problem which you are trying to solve, actually.
Absolutely.
And which exact technique you are taking to solve this problem, like is it like a machine learning techniques, is it artificial intelligence, and so on. It is not so important. Yes, of course, we are using it also, but we are not buzzwording about it because it's also very important to know that AI is not a new thing for the geospatial science, because right now you can see that many people they're talking about like geospatial AI as a separate branch of the geospatial, and it is also not a new thing for the Earth observation. because methods of the machine learning and so on, they are used for the satellite imagery classification and the deriving of the products based on the satellite imagery for a really, really long time. Because recently, for example, we discussed when the first time convolutional neural networks were mentioned for the processing of the satellite imagery data, and it was around 1988.
Really?
Yes, because
I was
it
5 years old.
yeah, I was no years old. But the first time when the convolutional neural network was described for the imagery processing, it was around those times. And it is actually very interesting because many people say that actually many things didn't change on their core a lot from this time. Yes, of course they changed, but the basic principles sometimes remain constant for a long period of time.
So you're
That is
saying to me that there has been no significant theoretical
no,
progress
no, no.
since 1988. But I
I
love
didn't
that.
say. I
Please
didn't
keep
say.
saying
I
that.
didn't say
Please no.
that. No, no. I didn't say that.
I want to
But
have broad sweeping opinions.
I didn't say that. I say that basics for many things.
Yeah.
They are not so recent. And
But that's still an important point.
and our ability to compute things increased, our ability to process the data increased significantly, and so on. Because if we are talking about the concept of the artificial neural networks, it's not the concept which appears in the year 2020 or something
your
like
point
that.
is that we can nowadays we can see the results more quickly of these older theories.
My point here, I think, is that it's my point here is that right now we are talking about this much more than before. Because, for example, when I was in early stage of my careers, we classify the satellite imagery a lot, but we never say that we are using machine learning techniques to classify the satellite imagery. We were just saying that we are making the satellite imagery classifications. Right now, while doing the same, many people will say that they're using the artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques. But there are a lot of changes. There are a lot of changes. A lot of changes for which you are adapting and for which you need to adapt rapidly. We are using all the techniques. We are trying to stay up to date all the time and so on. But what I think the main part here is, it is not about are you using AI or are you using ML and so on. It is more about are you staying critical about the outputs?
Yeah.
And from my point of view, the main is to stay critical about the outputs. So
I love it.
You can use any technology as long as you are staying critical about this technology and the outputs of it.
Yeah, and another thing that I liked how you started off answering this question was you talked about customer needs, and basically you said, there's many ways to address them. There's many tools, AI, ML, whatever. These are just tools, but you need to start with a customer need. So to me, you've answered the question well. And another reflection I have is that, we've got hyperscalers now. We've got Azure. We've got I also love mentioning Alibaba Cloud, right? You need to mention the Chinese, right? But we have data centers everywhere. We have high capacity compute has become commoditized. Is it the case that because it's easier and it doesn't cost as much to essentially have at your disposal a supercomputer, these old theories can now be put to use and put to work?
Yes. So it's it is not not the old series, but the core of the series.
Yeah.
In a lot of times, it is quite old stuff in the core. So it's all about these talks, like what is data science itself, like it's statistics with good computational power.
Exactly, and because data
Yeah.
science is another term with some hype. And I share the same view about the definition. Interesting.
And it's like I'm feeling myself excited about like everything. So I think you need to stay on agenda. I think you need to stay up to date and so on. And it is actually really wonderful that we are living at the age we are living, and we can use all these computational activities.
Yeah.
We can use all the storages. We can use the clouds and so on. And I'm feeling myself very inspired when I see in particular the road of the Earth observation, because I remember the times when to proceed like one scene of the Landsat 8 or something like that, it really takes for you like a time and so on. Right now, everything is scaled, everything is on the clouds. It takes you like seconds to receive, for example, the coverage of the open satellite imagery data for the territory of all the UK and so on. And it is quite inspiring, because I don't think that you should fear that. I think that you should be inspired, but keep yourself updated, be concerned, be critical, but be inspired, because you can do more things. You can be more productive.
I love it. This is actually a great segue into the last question. So in the UK, it's possible to undertake a geospatial apprenticeship. What qualities, skills, or ambitions should an apprentice have to do well at Map Impact?
It's like we have got actually a lot of opportunities. We like to share the opportunities also with students, because, for example, we will have one intern who will join us quite soon within the space placements in industry program supported by the Satellite Applications Catapult and UK Space Agency.
Oh.
We also have got like the collaborations with universities and so on. Recently, a couple of days ago, we were at the career exhibition at my alma mater, University College London. And we present.
It seems like UCL is at the center of so many things in geospatial in this country.
I strongly believe that the Department of the Civil, Environmental and Geomatic Engineering at the University College London is a really good department and starting point if you want to have got a geospatial career. So yeah, and it is actually great that we can provide the opportunities for the people who are at the different career stages. So if you're talking about like what qualities, skills and ambitions the person should expose, like it is good, first of all, to say that you can train skills, but you can train the attitude. So I think it is very important to keep in mind. It's like the question is also about like who is a modern geospatial scientist, like who it is, because it's like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, like it was a cartography, for example. Yeah. After it was like a geospatial science. After that, with the increasing amount of the Earth observation, it becomes like the geospatial science plus Earth observation. After that, right now you understand that you also need to become good at statistics, good at programming, good at mathematics. But actually, when it comes to cartography, you always need to be good at mathematics. So nowadays, you also need to be good at data science. You need to know also machine learning techniques and so on. So the question starts when you're trying to answer who is actually the modern geospatial scientist. And here, sometimes I'm calling it like a geospatial duck. Why duck? I will explain, because ducks, they can swim. Ducks, they can walk with their duck feet. And ducks, they can fly.
Great.
So
they can also go underwater a little bit.
Yes. So the geospatial duck, for me,
love it.
that is a person who, on the one hand, He's quite strong in terms of the geospatial science itself. He is strong about the cartography and so on. On the other hand, this person is familiar with data acquisition techniques, familiar with everything related to the Earth observation and so on. The person is also good with machine learning, with computation, with the statistics. He can code and so on. But what is also very, very important is domain research. Because, when you are making, for example, the map for somebody who is like a forestry organization, at this point, you need to become good at forestry assessment. So when you're making a map or a product or a geospatial solution for the agriculture, you need to dig into the bottom in the topic of the agricultural research and so on. So the person should always keep the domain focus, because map, it's not about like the map itself. You always should take into account whom exactly you serve. And if you're making like something related to the geology, you start to familiarize yourself with this part of the domain knowledge and
I'm
so
always
on.
joking that whatever GIS project I get involved in, I have a certificate level knowledge as though I studied at, some technical college or something in the domain that I'm serving. Especially when I was on a contaminated land cleanup project for 4.5 years, and the amount of information I learned from my colleagues about chemical analytes and hydrocarbon remediation of soil and
So it's like the more I'm working in the geospatial field, the more sometimes I think that you should be ready for everything.
In a way, it's a bit intimidating what you described there. I hope we haven't turned people off. I swear it is possible to get some good skills in this area. Don't be scared.
Yes. And technology is always changing, so I think you need just to keep the critical and agile mindset, but you also need to have got a strong background. So for me, for example, I think it is not so important, like, do the person knows the software, or do the person knows like the exact programming language or something like that.
It's the first principles.
It's the most important for the person is to understand the principles, to understand the concepts and so on. Because if the person understands the concepts, the person will be able to implement these concepts.
You'll have the versatility that you need to succeed.
And nowadays you also need a multivariate approach, because the technology is always changing. There are also a lot of ways to do anything. So when it comes to the geospatial stuff, you should keep in mind that you can use a multivariate approach. So to run to the same conclusions, to provide the same output, you really can use a multivariate approach. So it is very important for you to be adaptive.
Cool. So if anyone wants to use social media to catch up with you and discuss more of these ideas, is there anywhere they can reach out to you?
I'm usually using my LinkedIn for also professional communication. I'm also encouraging people to follow up the Map Impact LinkedIn page, because many news on our LinkedIn web page. Also you can like browse through the Map Impact site. Recently we also have got like a really good media in the BBC Breakfast.
Oh, really?
Yes. That was about the Windermere project, and you also can see the details on both our website and on our LinkedIn page.
Cool.
Also
you'll have to send me the link.
Yes.
All right. I'll put links to those three at least in the show notes, and maybe put some screenshots on the video. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
you've been amazing, Nina. Thanks for your time. It's been a while that we took to organize it, so thanks for your patience to finally get one.
No worries at all. Thank you a lot, Wilfred, because yeah, I think it was a great opportunity also for me. Yeah,
Great.
because I love to speak about my profession.
Me too. And if I'm honest, I liked the fact that we could have a bit of a debate